One family turned a single discount store into the most powerful retail empire on Earth, and the values that built it were slowly abandoned by the people who inherited it. According to Bloomberg's December 2025 tally, the Walton family controls $513 billion, which puts them ahead of every other dynasty on the planet by $177 billion. Nearly half of Walmart sits in their hands, the largest company on the Fortune 500 and the largest private employer in existence. Behind those numbers, you'll find fatal plane crashes, drunk driving scandals that vanished from the record, bribery cover-ups, crushed unions, a dead pedestrian and no charges filed, and a widening gap between the founder's legendary cheapness and the lives his heirs actually live. We're going to trace the full arc here, from Sam Walton's first failed store, all the way to a dynasty whose fortune exceeds the GDP of most countries. And we're going to examine what happened once the person who built it all was no longer around to hold it together. Sam Walton's origin story unlocks everything that came after, so that's where we begin. In Kingfisher, Oklahoma, 1918, Sam Walton entered the world. His family moved across Missouri during the worst years of the Depression. As a boy, he milked cows, delivered newspapers, and sold magazine subscriptions to keep the household afloat. By 8th grade, he reportedly became the youngest Eagle Scout in Missouri history, though some sources dispute that claim. His high school classmates at Hickman High voted him most versatile boy. He then attended the University of Missouri, where he became president of his senior class. He took a management trainee job at J.C. Penney in Des Moines, starting in 1940. The founder, James Cash Penney, personally taught Sam how to wrap packages. The real education came on his lunch breaks, when he walked through Sears and other competitors, studying their layouts, their prices, and their strategies. That obsession with the competition would define his entire career. World War II interrupted his career, and after Army service, Sam scraped together $25,000, $5,000 of his own, and $20,000 borrowed from his father-in-law, to buy a Ben Franklin variety store franchise in Newport, Arkansas. Opening day arrived on September 1, 1945, and by Sam's own admission, the store was a real dog. Within 5 years, he had pushed sales from roughly $80,000 up to $250,000. And that was when the defining disaster struck. Sam's landlord refused to renew the lease and handed the location to his own son, which meant Sam lost everything he had built in that town. Years later, he recalled that he had to pick himself up and get on with it, do it all over again, only even better this time. That lesson burned itself into him permanently, and from that point forward, he never made a deal without controlling the real estate. The move to Bentonville, Arkansas came in 1950. Helen wanted small-town life. Sam wanted hunting seasons in 4 states, and together they opened Walton's 5 and 10 on the town square, this time buying the building outright. By the early 1960s, 15 stores were running under Sam and his brother Bud, and when Sam pitched the discount store concept to Ben Franklin's executives, they turned him down flat. What followed was the gamble that changed American retail forever. On July 2, 1962, at age 44, Sam mortgaged his home, borrowed heavily, and opened the first Walmart discount city in Rogers, Arkansas. Nobody else used his strategy. Competitors like Kmart chased cities of 50,000 people or more, while Sam targeted forgotten towns of 2,000 to 20,000, placing each store within a day's drive of central distribution warehouses. Scouting locations meant flying himself in used airplanes, and over his lifetime he owned about 18 of them without ever buying one new. At each stop, he would rent a budget sedan, walk through competitors' stores picking up trash, and study their operations so closely that he later claimed he spent more time inside Kmart stores than any Kmart executive. Revenue hit $1 billion in 1979, faster than any company in history had reached that mark, And by 1990, Walmart sat atop American retail, having overtaken both Sears and Kmart. Sam's operating philosophy sounded almost too simple: lower your prices, more customers walk in, and higher volume compensates for thinner margins. As he put it, every time Walmart spends $1 foolishly, it comes right out of our customers' pockets. Those Saturday morning meetings started at 7 a.m. and ran 2.5 hours, with Sam arriving at 3 or 4 in the morning to review weekly numbers. Calling employees associates wasn't just branding either, because Sam introduced profit sharing and a stock purchase program that allowed one cashier to accumulate $262,000 in her retirement account by 1992. Sam's personal habits matched his principles. A red 1985 Ford pickup served as his daily vehicle, and when people questioned it, his answer became famous. "What am I supposed to haul my dogs around in? A Rolls-Royce?" $25,000 bought the modest house in Bentonville, where he and Helen lived from 1959 until they died. At one meeting in Little Rock, Sam stood up, pointed to his jacket label, and told the room, "Walmart, $50. The pants, Walmart, $16. But here's the thing. The single most consequential decision Sam ever made came 9 years before the first Walmart existed. Back in 1953, Sam structured a family partnership that placed 80% of ownership in his 4 children's names, 20% each, keeping just 10% each for himself and Helen. Roughly $10 billion in estate taxes never had to be paid because of that one move. That partnership became the structural foundation of everything the Waltons own today. Cancer took Sam Walton on April 5, 1992, at the age of 74, after a fight that stretched back to his 1982 diagnosis. Days before the end, he lay in his hospital bed reviewing sales data. 1 month earlier, President George H.W. Bush had awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Rob Walton, his eldest son, assumed the chairmanship just 2 days after Sam's death. 1,735 stores, roughly 400,000 employees, and $50 billion in annual sales now sat under Rob's watch. Growth was never the question after that. What the family would become without Sam was. And this is where the story fractures, because the personal scandals came first, and they came hard. Alice Walton, Sam's only daughter, carries the most troubling personal chapter among the 4 children. On a misty morning in 1989, driving her Porsche along a country road in Fayetteville, Arkansas, she struck and killed a 50-year-old cannery worker named Oleta Hardin, a mother of 2. No charges were filed. The incident was ruled a no-fault accident, and Alice never received so much as a ticket. 9 years later, in 1998, she crashed into a gas meter and telephone box in Springdale, Arkansas, and broke her nose. A blood alcohol reading of 0.16 came back, well above the legal limit. Officers testified that she said, "Do you know who I am? Do you know my last name?" Guilty verdicts landed on all 4 counts. The fine was $925, an amount that barely registered against her net worth of approximately $6.3 billion. October 7, 2011, brought another arrest, this time on her 62nd birthday in Parker County, Texas. A failed field sobriety test and a refused breathalyzer led to driving while intoxicated charges, and when officers pointed out that her registration had expired, she replied, "I have someone who does that for me." What happened next tells you everything. Lawyers submitted doctor's notes. The arresting trooper was suspended for unrelated misconduct and could not testify. The 2-year statute of limitations expired without prosecution, and all records were expunged. As the Arkansas Times noted, on the face of it, it sounds like Parker County does not want to disoblige the 16th richest woman in the world. Today, Alice holds the title of the richest woman on earth, worth over $116 billion. Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, which she founded and which charges no admission, has drawn more than 15 million visitors, and she is also funding a tuition-free medical school. She has accomplished real things with her wealth, and she has operated under a different set of rules than the rest of the country. Both of those statements are true at the same time. The family's investment record produced its own embarrassment. $150 million went into Theranos, making the Waltons Elizabeth Holmes' single largest investor in a company that proved to be entirely fraudulent. Against their combined fortune, the loss amounted to loose change, but for a family built on knowing the value of a dollar, the failure of due diligence stung. John Walton, Alice's brother, carved out a different kind of legacy entirely. A Green Beret who earned a Silver Star in Vietnam, he became a fierce advocate for school choice and co-founded the Children's Scholarship Fund, which delivered more than 67,000 scholarships to low-income families. On June 27, 2005, John died at 58 when his home-built ultralight aircraft crashed moments after takeoff from Jackson Hole Airport. The NTSB traced the cause to an improper repair he had performed himself. $18.2 billion. That is what Forbes estimated his estate to be worth. John was the exception. The system was the rule. Those were the personal fractures. The systemic ones run deeper, and they build on each other. A 2020 Government Accountability Office report placed Walmart among the top 4 employers of SNAP and Medicaid recipients in every state studied, with over 14,000 Walmart workers collecting food stamps across just 9 states. $6.2 billion a year is what an Americans for Tax Fairness study estimated Walmart's low-wage model costs U.S. taxpayers in public assistance. Bernie Sanders used blunter language, calling the Waltons the real welfare queen in America. To be fair, Walmart has moved its starting pay in recent years up to $14 an hour, with average frontline associate pay reaching around $17.50 to $18 an hour. That's real money compared to a decade ago. And this is where the critique gets more complicated, because the wages did go up, and they're still nowhere near Costco's minimum of $20 an hour. The gap between what the company can afford and what it chooses to pay remains central to how people judge this family. February 2000 delivered one of the most revealing episodes in corporate labor history. Meat cutters at a single Texas Walmart voted 7-3 to form a union, and the company's response arrived within weeks, shutting down meat-cutting operations across 180 stores in 6 states and switching entirely to pre-packaged products. Workers in Jonquière, Quebec, who became the first in North America to unionize a Walmart, watched the company close the entire store. Canada's Supreme Court later ruled 5-2 that Walmart had violated labor law. A 2012 New York Times investigation exposed something worse. Walmart de Mexico had funneled over $24 million in bribes to government officials, including payments tied to construction near the ancient pyramids of Teotihuacan. Bentonville headquarters learned about the corruption in 2005 through a whistleblower, but instead of pursuing the investigation, leadership shut it down and sent the matter back to the very lawyer at the center of the scheme. $283 million in settlement costs followed, and the total expense including the internal probe exceeded $900 million. While all of this unfolded, the family's personal wealth kept climbing. Rob Walton assembled a group that purchased the Denver Broncos for $4.65 billion, setting a world record for a sports franchise. Stuart Walton, Jim's son, paid $14 million for a Malibu home he bought from Cindy Crawford. Sam Walton never once flew first class. Sam Walton wore $16 pants from his own stores, and Sam's autobiography contained an explicit warning to his heirs. If you start any of that foolishness like changing the structure, selling off stock, going off and doing fancy things, I will come back and haunt you. Not a single Walton has signed the Giving Pledge. Rob's public response to the question was, "I certainly salute them. We have chosen not to do that and to go our own way." Foundation assets controlled by the family represent less than 1.5% of their total wealth. Now, here's a finding that reframes this entire story. No public lawsuits exist between Walton family members. No inheritance battles. No siblings dragging each other to court. No boardroom coups. Compared to the Murdochs or the Kochs, the Waltons function as an unusually unified front. This story is not about the family tearing itself apart from the inside. It is about the growing moral distance between Sam Walton's principles and the empire that carries his name. December 2024 brought a generational shift that had been years in the making. All 8 grandchildren of Sam and Helen Walton received voting rights over the family's holdings, with managing membership interests transferred from Alice, Jim, and Rob into new trusts. Power formally passed to the 3rd generation. Walmart itself entered 2026 under a new CEO, John Furner, who started as an hourly associate more than 30 years ago. 10,750 stores now operate across 19 countries, with fiscal year 2025 revenue reaching $681 billion and a market cap that briefly touched $1 trillion. Dividends alone throw off an estimated $3.4 billion a year for the family. Walton Enterprises, the entity managing all of this, runs out of an office above a bike shop called Pat Tire in downtown Bentonville. Employees at the coffee shop next door reportedly do not even know it exists. Over $230 billion in assets are managed from a room above a bike shop. Sam would have appreciated that. A tension hangs over this family and their empire that no amount of money can resolve. Sam Walton built everything from nothing through relentless work, genuine cheapness, and an obsessive commitment to the lowest possible price. His heirs preserved the business structure with discipline and avoided the public warfare that tears most dynasties apart. The moral architecture, though, the belief that a company should serve ordinary people, that wealth carries obligation, that nobody gets to live above the rules, that part eroded in ways Sam probably would not recognize. The Waltons did not collapse the way most dynasties do, with leaked emails and courtroom battles and family members at each other's throats. Their unraveling arrived quietly through scandals swept from the record, workers left on food stamps while the family fortune crossed $500 billion, and a founder's principles that turned into words on a wall rather than rules anyone lived by. $513 billion, one family. And the open question of whether the empire Sam built still belongs to what he stood for, or to something else entirely. That leaves us with the real question, and I want to hear where you land on it. Can any family hold on to a self-made founder's values across 3 generations of inherited wealth? Or is that drift just baked into the math of compounding money and fading memory? Are you team inevitable or team they could have done better? Drop your answer in the comments, because I read everyone, and the best answers end up pinned. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this, and tell me in the comments what family dynasty you want covered next. Until next time.